All right, hit and record here on audio, and here comes some intro music.
Right now, we'd like to bring on a young man who believes in doing things his own way. And based on the way he kind of get next to all of the folks who've seen him work, his way has got to be pretty hip. So let's lay some noise.
Listen up, my boy. 2000 and beyond. This so-called democracy.
Yo, welcome back, fellow Bucks fans. This is Robert Green. You are listening to Outside Leverage Podcast, Week 8. Going into Week 8, this is track 13, I believe, here for the podcast. Here tonight on the podcast, I have one of the cooler content creators or former content creators for the Bucks. A few, I guess, going back to a couple years ago now. Most of you guys probably know him as the play reaction guy, Big Beard, Fitzpatrick's little brother. Corey Draper, fellow Bucks fan here in the Georgia area. It's a pleasure to have him on. I'm definitely glad to be able to finally speak with him, be it remotely. God willing, sooner than later we'll be able to get him in closer quarters and we can actually talk it up for real. But tonight, again, Corey Draper, also known as the Play Reaction, also known as Bucks Capacitator, if you follow Reddit and that crowd. So glad to have you on, man. How you doing tonight?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I unfortunately no longer have the Fitzpatrick beard. So I don't know, maybe my powers have gone and that's why I can't create anything anymore. But I appreciate the fact that I haven't created a video probably in a year and a half, maybe at this point.
It's been a year and a half at this point.
I happy to be invited on and talk Bucks football. I don't get a whole lot, as you know, being in the Atlanta area, not a whole lot of Bucks fans to talk football with. So
yeah, and it's a damn shame. Actually, man, there are actually a lot of good fans around here. There are a lot of good fans around. I've gotten a chance to cross paths with some of them. Actually, funny enough, every time I go into my Walgreens, which is like 2 minutes away here over near Pond Street, same cat. Even while I'm wearing a mask at this stage, he recognizes me, man, and we end up talking about the Bucks and what the Bucks are doing and everything else. So it's pretty cool to have people, just to be able to speak football with, even if it's not directly to the Bucks, but some people already associate me with the Bucks and my fandom there. So that's kind of pretty cool for me.
Yeah, big shout out to Buccaneers Invasion too, the fan club here in Atlanta. I don't know if you've gone to one of their watch parties. I haven't been able to go to a bunch of them since I work on Sundays, but there's a large group of fans here. They're a passionate fan base. I know Mark Goodman, the guy who started it, which was ATL Bucks back in the day. I've met him. He goes volunteers at my church. So I know they have some good people over there. So there's Bucks fans around here. It's just, every time you see one, you kind of give them the nod and the wave. But it's hard to get some people to talk Bucks football with in depth. So
yeah, it's I'm actually a part of that group on their Facebook page. Actually, a pretty big group too. It's not a small group of folks, man. They and they do also have like you said, the watch parties and so forth. I haven't gotten out. I've tried to stay as safe as I can, and unfortunately, it means my being away from a lot of people to do these watch parties. So I'm not partaking in any of that stuff. I'm trying to stay away from as many people as I can, trying to keep other people safe, just trying to do that kind of thing. So
for sure,
yeah. God willing, though, man, I was really anxious, hoping things kind of turned around at this stage, so we can go and take a look at this matchup back at the house, this rematch and this revenge game for the Saints. That was kind of something I was hoping things kind of clear up by that stage, and unfortunately for me, I won't be able to go back down there. So,
yeah.
Well,
looks like it's not clearing up at all this season. So
nah. That's why I'm glad I still have my season tickets in line for next year though. So I'll be able to partake in as many games as we can next year. God
So
willing,
do you drive all the way down and go to those games, or do you fly? How do you? I mean, living up in Atlanta, that's what, a 7-8 hour drive.
6.5 hour drive. I probably 6.5 hour drive to Orlando, and then it's another hour and a half from there. But you can do it in 7 hours. So
okay,
yeah. But
that's commitment.
I make the drive. I make the drive.
How long have you had season tickets?
I've had season tickets for, according to my flag here, since 2006.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been through some stuff, man. I
was about to say, man, big props to you driving down. I mean, I know you haven't been in Atlanta that whole time, just till recently, but I mean, at least the last year or two, you've driven and seen some heartbreakers. Yeah,
I have, man. I have. I've seen a lot of ups and a lot of downs. I've seen more ups than a lot of people would assume. And part of it is because I've been able to see on the bright side where some people thought it was just absolute terrible. But then also when a lot of other fans kind of got really up in some areas, specifically quarterback play and in the offense.
Right.
I was always one of the guys like, okay, time out. Let's reel this back in. Like this could be so much better. It doesn't have to be what it is now. And, a lot of the talk over the past few years, and circulated around how bad the defense was. You've seen it. You've been a part of these conversations and so forth. You've seen how, the negative reaction to the defense, basically on whether it was a win or a loss, and how the offense played.
Yeah.
So, we can actually jump into last week's, not a review, but basically a recap of what went on last week. Actually, the past couple weeks that lead into this upcoming game against New Orleans. You've seen how the offense has gone this year, and you've kind of seen how fans have had opinions one way or another, and a lot of them have been kind of, I wouldn't say as extreme as in recent past, but there've definitely been some passionate arguments about how fans should react, whether it's a win or a loss and things like that. What have you seen? Let's just start with Monday night. Monday night was a disappointing performance, even though it was a win for a lot of people. How did you see that win, and what did you see that was maybe concerning or something that kind of goes back into that talk about, being happy with the win versus being happy with the performance?
Well, winning ugly is something we're not unfamiliar with. So I've definitely learned to love a win no matter how it looks, but also, being realistic to there's a difference between trashing a team and not being happy when they win ugly and being thankful they won and still recognizing that there are some gaping holes that were exposed and we need to take care of. So I think, any coach or player would tell you, we're not there yet. We've got stuff to work on. And they tell you flat out, hey, we won by 2 points, but it wasn't pretty. And that means we have some work to do. And that's the mentality I have in games like this. And yeah, it's not a fun game to watch, especially when it's against a team like the Giants, who are not a very good team record wise. I do think they, as a team, are probably better than we give them credit for. And I know a lot of people have said this. I think we are fortunate that Daniel Jones was the quarterback. Lots of open receivers and lots of missed shots that they had there. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'm happy we won. I'll take the win. But it's definitely humbling because I think we were on such a roll going into that game. As much like the Chicago game, we think we're on top of the world and can beat anybody. We're going to beat the Steelers. We're going to beat the Seahawks. And then we barely beat the Giants. It's humbling for sure. And I know a lot of fans want to blame, Jamel Dean. A lot of fans want to blame Byron Leftwich's play calling and all that stuff. And there seems to be a fan narrative that people catch the wave on and they'll hitch their flag to. I'm always of the opinion it's always a yes and. That's a little bit of it, but let's not harp on that part.
Yeah.
Talk about years past where it's like, yeah, Jameis Winston threw a lot of interceptions. Yes, the defense blew a lot of coverages. Did Jameis Winston put them in terrible positions? Yes, he did. It's just like one of those things, like it can be all it can be all and everything. It doesn't have to be one thing. So I think this is one of those cases where, hey, run game wasn't great. Play calling wasn't great. The secondary wasn't great. Collectively, that was the result.
So, yeah, like you're saying, a lot of these things aren't great and a lot of things are happening here. Was there anything that stuck out to you that was like, okay, this is a repeating incident. This is a repeating, just a recurring action, anything like that. Like I said, a lot of people tend to plant their flag on one narrative and just ride with it.
Sure.
Play calling is never going to be as good as all these guys who play Madden and can make it to the Pro Bowl, and all this and so forth, and play fantasy football, and and their players get all kinds of points and so forth. Was there anything that you recognize on either side of the ball that you're like, okay, against the Giants in the Giants game? Was there anything that you were like, okay, all right, I'm seeing this. This is maybe a little bit unnerving. This is not what needs to be happening. And it starts to, kind of creep up as a concern that you look out for in the next game and the next game.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple there. I obviously the popular fan narrative is Byron Leftwich calling nothing but runs on first down. I think there's some validity to those complaints. I do think we run it more than we should, and I do think it's predictable runs. I think it's not creative play calling when he does. So there, I think there's validity to that. I did hear the stat that this game we actually threw on first down more than we ran.
Yeah, we did. We actually the Bucs actually passed on 17 of the 30 first downs. Yeah. So it was a 17-13 ratio pass to run, and people still were upset that they were like, "Oh, here comes a run up. Here comes a run up the middle." Why it was that.
That's one of those things where it's like, as soon as that person has a narrative, I mean, that goes back to, I don't know, Chris Conti missing a tackle. It goes to Donovan Smith whiffing on a block. Like, Donovan Smith can have a perfect game, but he allows one sack, and then it's done on Twitter. Donovan Smith should be let go and out of here. And I'm not saying that he's a great player or anything. It's just that's an example of, once a person is given that stigma, the one time they do it, it's like validating everybody's opinions. So
right,
it's it is a thing. I think for me, I have more of a problem with the lack of creativity in the play. So I'm fine if you call a run on first down, but it's the same kind of run that he's doing over and over again. I think that's the issue I'm taking with the runs on first down. It's up the middle, up the middle, up the middle, up the middle. And even against teams that seem to have a good interior defensive line, it's still run up the middle, such as against the Giants.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, one thing that I think this is something that I have swirling in my head, and Robert, I want to know kind of what your thoughts are on this. It seems to me that with the defense, whenever we face a creative play caller, they seem to find how to beat this defense. So this goes to the 3 times that this defense has not looked great: against Sean Payton, against Matt Nagy, and against Jason Garrett. And particularly this game, I thought Jason Garrett called a great game to neutralize our blitz scheme, where he knew that, hey, my quarterback is the most blitzed quarterback out of the NFL, and I'm facing a team that blitzed the most out of the NFL, or one of the most. So I'm going to get the ball out of his hands quick. We're going to draw up plays to have, we're going to have those double moves and get the corners looking and throw it deep. So there's a lot of things there. I felt like in the play calling that really kind of befuddled our defense. And it seemed like it was the same thing with Nagy and Foles, and the same thing with Peyton and Breeze. And Breeze obviously is a better quarterback than Foles and Daniel Jones, but it seemed like the same thing. And, Breeze is kind of a get it quick out of your hands kind of player anyway. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a second. But that's something that's worrying me, that if we face a creative offensive play caller, our defense seems to really struggle.
What I would say, and what I've noticed with this defense this year, playing these creative types, actually it's been like I think you mentioned Matt Nagy. as one of the guys who had a good game with, I guess it was Chicago, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he did a whole lot that was super creative. That's just not coming into. That's just not coming into play with my memory.
Sure. This may be memory versus memory, but I seem to remember Foles having the same problem Daniel Jones did, where he missed a lot of open receivers. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys where it's like, oh man, thank God we're playing Nick Foles right now, kind of situations. And then, Nick Foles is such a streaky quarterback, and those times that he did get hot, he was unstoppable. Mm-hmm. And they would drive the field on us. So that's kind of what I'm referring to. And this is without looking at tape. I'll admit that with the Bears, that may be the exception. But when you have players like, Nick Foles and Daniel Jones whipping up on your defense, it seems to me that's more scheme than anything.
Yeah. What I did notice with Todd Bowles and his defense, again, because there was so much talk, and there's been a whole lot of talk dating back to, I want to say, week 3, where, after the Bucs the defense had gotten off to a hot start, that the talk was the Bucs bring pressure all the time. It's blitz, 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 blitz. Todd Bowles, I think, I have to go back and look at the stats here and where he stood, but he doesn't call blitz as often as people think. And the one thing I did notice was that Todd Bowles would, against younger quarterbacks, specifically the Chargers game against he did against the Chargers game, he just did it with Daniel Jones and I forget there was another team that kind of stood out of my mind here, but what he ended up doing was basically a delayed blitz. Like literally he played zone.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He would send his guys out and play zone like literally the first half for most of the game, for a couple of those games, or 3 of them that's in my mind. He would play zone and let them get comfortable and then lock them down in the second half or the second quarter in a couple of games, or the end of the second quarter. And I thought that, it looks worrisome to start because it looks so familiar, like you mentioned before, like as soon as people start latching on to one thing, they kind of stick with it. People started having flashbacks of, how they hated Mike Smith and how our defense played off the receivers and so forth. So it's kind of one of those things. But if you go back and if you get a chance to go back and look, and you can, you and I can do this offline, we can go back and check, and we can go back and look and see how many times he blitzed and how he just kind of delayed it. He just waited. It seemed like he was waiting for quarterbacks to feel like they had a beat on what the defense was doing, and then he just shakes it up.
Yeah. Devin White had a huge sack on one of those where he stepped back as if he was going in zone and then immediately jumped forward and threw off the running back and got a huge sack off of that. So, that's a good point. I'd like to see the stats. I'm sure somebody keeps that stat somewhere.
As far as how many blitzes are called?
Yeah. I've seen that stat before. I think we were number 1 and 2 on amount of blitzes that we call, or maybe top 3. I feel like I saw it in a broadcast.
Yeah. I think he's definitely up there, but it's not like, every other snap he's sending it, right? Sure. And he especially can't do that now with Vita Vea out of the lineup.
Yeah, well, and you bring up a good point with the Chargers. I forgot all about Justin Herbert. I mean, he picked us apart, and I don't know if that was so much play calling because I don't even know who their play caller is.
I know this, man, coming out of that game against the Chargers, all I can see was that dude, Justin Herbert, is a legit quarterback.
Yeah, and that's something where it's like this wasn't a Mitch Trubisky kind of thing where he throws 6 touchdowns against us and then sucks the rest of his career. Herbert's been doing this to everybody. Yeah. So that may just be he's that special.
No, he definitely feels like a legit quarterback once things kind of get off of his shoulders and he can actually do something with a better offense and everything around him. I kind of even hate to say that, he'll be able to be a quarterback when things are better around him. He's shown that he's a solid dude now. It's just going to take everybody else to catch up to him because no matter what everybody else does, he's still going to be judged as a quarterback by people who actually, pay attention to the game. He's not going to be the result of his team's results because right now people are talking about him being a winner even though they're losing, which is what you want.
Yeah.
He's not the product of a win-loss record, and that's good for him.
Yeah, so I don't know there. We're 6-2. So I mean it's one of those things like even if it's true that Byron calls a vanilla game, we're still winning with it. So
Yeah.
and maybe we don't without Tom Brady as our quarterback, but since we have him as our quarterback, let's go vanilla because it's working.
Here's my problem with, and this is part of the, again, we're still on the New York Giants game and so forth, and some of the issues that kind of carry over from game to game, including the Giants game. This is my issue with the Bucs offense in general, and I can't mention Byron Leftwich without mentioning Bruce Arians because they're literally one and the same. Either he's completely Bruce Arians he has his hands on that offense. It's his system, his philosophies, I believe. I don't believe Byron Leftwich is more than a play caller. He is what Todd Monken was. Todd Monken, for the few games where everybody thought the Bucs were amazing on offense, he was the play caller. He didn't design an offense that was completely radically different from what Dirk Cutter put together. Right. No matter how many people want to say, well, look how great the offense was. I'm like, okay, time out. Let's look at what was going on. There was not a different play call. There was a different quarterback under center when that offense looked completely different. So it's a completely different deal. But I do believe Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians have a tendency to make things so much harder on their offense, and they do the same things. They stunt their own offense. They did it they did it against New York. They basically have done it in every game except for one, I believe against the Packers, because the offense comes out and just looks flat for too much of the game. 70% of the game, they come out and look flat, and it's bad. And that's kind of that is one of the complaints that I have, that the offense is basically just done well enough to hang around until the defense makes a play or does something to break the game into a different direction. That's an issue I have. If I go back and look, in 1 second, I actually have this in play now. I can pull up where the offense was just their drives that they had were, man, it was just not good. Like their first. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do make a good point there, in that the defense definitely, at least in this Giants game, bailed out the offense, or not bailed them out, but really helped them out, especially late in the game. I mean, they got turnovers at the right moments that we converted into points. So it's definitely a work together situation. If we don't have this defense, we're definitely not 6-2. Right. If we don't have this offense, we're probably not 6-2 either. So, I mean, it's kind of both, but I'll let you continue your thought, but I do have more questions for you in regards to Bruce Arians. So we've had conversations about this on Twitter, but I'll let you finish your thought.
Well, I guess my only real thought, I'll finish this shortly and we'll get to your questions there, was that the Bucs offense it's become far too reliant on the defense actually playing exceptionally well. And that's kind of not the way for the past few years, one of the buzzwords around Tampa and all of our fans, all of us, I have to say us, because I'm a fan as well, obviously, is that complimentary football is the way to go, right? But it's so lopsided. Like as much as we are so in love with the Bucs offense and what the offense can do, what's happening with we're so in love with what the Bucs offense can do, and we praise the offense no matter what happens in the game. When you look at the highlights, as soon as the game is over, what do you see? You see Tom Brady carries such and such, offense carries such and such. It's just weird to me. Like it is bothersome almost.
I mean, offense is what makes the money in the NFL. That's why they've changed all the rules the way they have and everything. So I think there's just a natural tendency to go that way.
Right.
I mean, wins and losses usually on the casual fan, even hardcore fans' mind, starts with the offense, unless your defense is just that bad.
Yeah.
Which it has been in our past. But it's hard because there are moments, I'm just thinking back to the Giants game. There are moments where I thought just the defense was not handling what they're not doing their job well at all. And there were moments where I'm like, man, this offense is flat. This offense is not doing their job at all. And then vice versa on both accounts. So, I mean, team sport, you need both offense and defense. And thankfully they're complementing each other enough to where we are 6-2.
Yeah.
But we are about to hit that stretch of games where, I mean, we're going to play the Saints, we're going to play the Rams, we're going to play the Chiefs, and we're going to see what we're made of here. And I think that's why we're having this conversation is, hey, ultimately, are we pretending our way to see some pretty bad losses against these legitimate teams, or can we, are we the team that destroyed the Packers, and can we consistently do that?
Yeah, for those, I'm glad you brought up the Packers game. For those unaware, I hate to do it. Derek Fournier is probably going to kill me for it, but he's a big don't thump your chest guy. I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna keep telling cats. Like I tried to tell you, there's a lot of folks who didn't tell you. They didn't warn you about this Green Bay team. They told you the Green Bay was what their record was, and that they were so good, and they were this and that. Green Bay was overrated. Green Bay is overrated.
I agree.
100% overrated. And I absolutely love watching the Green Bay Packers play. I love watching Aaron Rodgers. I love that was my second team going all the way back to 95 when I became a BUCS fan. That was my second. Yeah. And they were in our division. Yeah. They were in my division. I'm from a place that didn't have an NFL team, but I was watching Brett Favre. I was watching that whole saga all the way up until now. And I wholeheartedly told Cass, I'm like, yo, there's nothing to worry about in this game. This team is so overrated. They hadn't won against any team that was worth a damn as far as their defense. They hadn't beaten a team that was worth a damn except for the New Orleans Saints at that time.
Yeah. And
New Orleans Saints had like their 21st or 26th. I don't know why, but it's between the 21st and the 26th ranked defense at the time. I'm like, yo, these guys are not legit. They're not going to be able to stand up to our defense as long as our offense stays together.
And didn't they just lose to the Vikings too?
Yes.
A week or two ago?
Yeah, a 1-6 team at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So,
I'm with you there. For sure.
So,
the thing is though, is that you still have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback.
And he's a hell of a quarterback.
To see what Daniel Jones did to us or what Justin Herbert did to us, I think it is saying something to at least shut down Aaron Rodgers. But I agree with you. I mean, the Packers are not as good as everyone thinks they are. I think they're one of those teams that they're the Packers, so everybody assumes they're good,
right?
Especially when they win. Which there's the whole "you are what your record says you are," which I don't buy into either. But yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. So then, what do you say then? I mean, what are you concerned about? Are you saying that we may not be as good as we think we are? Do you think we're going to, you don't have to talk about the Saints game yet, but with the Saints, with the Rams, with the Chiefs, do you think we're going to get exposed?
I think,
this team is more the Giants team, or do you think this team is more the Packers team?
This team differs from both of them. And here's why. We have in our favor right now, we have a defensive unit that can pull out games, which New York and Green Bay don't have.
Yeah.
Our offense is still potent, 100% potent. Our offense is one of the most potent in the NFL, hands down. Like our team, without the new addition of that guy, our team is still one of the most potent teams, period. Like at any time, this team can get warm and just go. Because even with the injuries, with Chris Godwin gone, and again, not with that other guy who just got on, Mike Evans is still a double team. He's a mismatch for pretty much every cornerback that he goes up against. Scotty Miller, when utilized correctly. Johnson, when he's on the field and playing the spot that Chris Godwin isn't in when Chris Godwin isn't in, which is a huge issue that I had took with the Giants game.
Yes.
When he's in the game, he has to be accounted for with a really good receiver. It can't be like the third cornerback on that guy. Like
I was pulling my hair out that we were playing Jaden Mickens so much. Like Tyler Johnson is a really good receiver, and he's proven it in the little bit that he has shown so far. Like I have no idea why Jaden Mickens got so many looks that game. Played more snaps than Tyler Johnson.
More snaps than Tyler Johnson. Again, this isn't to take away from Jaden Mickens and what he did and who he could be.
Right.
But Jaden Mickens came into the game against New York with 27 offensive snaps. 27. He got 44.
It's crazy.
44 snaps. And he took the spot. He took the spot that Chris Godwin plays during this game. And the thing that got me, man, I was like, okay, all right. And I noticed that during the game, I started looking around trying to see if I saw number 18 on the field. They were on the field at the same time, but no doubt about it. And Bruce Arians confirmed it after, even though I very, very rarely can buy into everything he says. I don't. But he said that they put Jaden Mickens in Chris Godwin's spot. Now, what that did, that took away from Scotty Miller because Scotty Miller ended up getting bracketed on his deep routes. That took that away. That took snaps away from not only Godwin, I'm sorry, not just Tyler Johnson. That also took snaps away from Cameron Brate, who I believe played 13 offensive snaps. Mm. Like this is we can transition into New York now. I'm sorry, to New Orleans now, even though we spent so little time specifically on the Giants. But when I talk about the stuff that people need to watch out for and the issues that concern me, this has been a deal with the Bucs offense since week 1.
Yeah.
When Bruce Arians and or Byron Leftwich decided to not attack the middle of the field with the tight ends, with O.J. Howard was healthy, with Cameron Brate being healthy, with Rob Gronkowski starting. Like we did not do a damn thing against the New Orleans Saints in the middle of the field. And then we had to watch New Orleans lose to Las Vegas, who threw damn near exclusively to the tight end. And I was just like, yo, Bruce Arians and or Byron Leftwich make it so much harder than it needed to be. It felt like they got cute. Like they were just throwing stuff out there to see what they can get away with.
Well, it seems like it's stubborn scheming and play calling too. Like it doesn't seem like it's like we have our plan and we're just going to stick to it, hell or high water, through the game. And that's and I think that's one thing that's opened my eyes this year specifically about Bruce Arians. I know you haven't been the biggest fan of his, at least as compared to the rest of us. I've seen, and this goes to, the play calling, goes to the scheming, but also goes to the decisions, just head scratching decisions and key moments of the game. And I mean, you could talk fourth down decisions, or you can talk late game clock management decisions, times when they went for 2 and they shouldn't, times where they didn't go for 2 when they should have. There doesn't seem to be consistency, and it seems like there's sometimes they're just winging it. So I think that is the one thing that I think that it concerns me, and especially against teams like the Saints, is you go up against someone like Sean Payton, which is just he's proven himself as far as a play caller, as far as a schemer, and as much as we hate the guy, he's been in this league for a long time for a reason, and an offensive mastermind. I would definitely feel more comfortable with Sean Payton as my head coach than Bruce Arians right now, as far as in-game management. Right. It's that whole creative play calling thing that I think that we're missing. I don't see us getting creative in play calling, and I don't see us. I don't ever see Bruce Arians doing what Mike Vrabel did weeks ago, where he played the clock so well, telling his team to jump off sides. Did you see that?
I did. That was one of the most genius things I think I'd ever seen.
It's one of those things that, like, Arians, maybe it's his age. He's so old school. I don't know. There's just so many things we can speculate on. But that is one thing that has frustrated me, is that I'm not as confident in Arians as a game planner and game manager.
No, and it's been that way since he came back. Actually, I don't even, because I didn't study him as much as I did, other coaches and so forth, as far as his tendencies and everything. But that's one of the things that stood out literally all the way back to last year. And I remember week 6. After week 6, I set up and wrote a piece on Bruce Arians about whether or not his hiring was, whether or not it was a lateral move. Because everything that fans complained about Dirk Cutter was so present with Bruce Arians. Every single thing. Deep shots down the field all the time. Spacing and the play calling, questionable time, questionable clock management, everything that people had to complain about with Dirk Cutter, it was bought into because it was something new with Bruce Arians, who people didn't pay attention to. And again, I don't dislike Bruce. Every time I do a podcast, I end up saying this. I don't dislike Bruce Arians. I don't trust him worth a damn. No, I'm just a fan. I don't have to trust him. It's the players apparently trust him and they love him. But then again, I don't know how many times players have just come out and said, hey, I don't like the coach. I'm not speculating on that one way or another. But everybody loves his attitude, loves his presence and everything. But he's done enough to lose 2 games. The 2 games that the Bucs lost, it was primarily, we can talk about the penalties and all these other things, but it were decisions, in-game decisions that basically torpedo the Bucs' chances. Like they just kept throwing hurdles that did not need to be there. Just kept throwing them in there, like voluntarily. I didn't get it.
Yeah, let me bring in a positive spin here, because I don't want it to be just so negative this whole time. But I was excited about the Bruce Arians hire, and the reason is because I had been a fan of his from when Amazon did their first All or Nothing series, and the Cardinals were a part of it. And I watched that whole season, and I became a big fan of his because it was clear that he had a lot of respect from his players, and it wasn't just the players loved him, it's that they super respected him. And this was during a time when we had Lovie Smith and Dirk Cutter as our coaches, and I didn't get that from them. I didn't get that same kind of respect that players had for their coach that they did for Bruce Arians, especially Cutter. And so while Arians is, and you're right, very similar to Cutter, very similar, especially in game management, I think the big difference is that Arians came in with a certain reputation and a certain just general respect that was already there, that I felt like we hadn't had as a Bucs head coach probably since John Gruden.
He came in with a winning record.
Yeah. And so
that was pretty much it for me.
And, with Cutter, we always felt like the Bucs were almost there. They were so close. They were just like, a piece away, or a weird fumble away, or a quarterback away, or whatever you wanted to say, or a defense away. We all thought we were this way. We were very close, though. We were very close. We were 9-7 that one year. It seemed to me at the time that what was missing was a respectable head coach that has proven it. And I thought Bruce Arians brought that in. Now that we're living it, it's still really, it's taken the greatest quarterback of all time to finally put us over the edge, at least to this point. So
now that's where this could be a completely different podcast. That's where I kind of take not issue, but that's why I say it did not take Tom Brady. Stay with me.
Oversimplifying it.
Stay with me, Bucs fans. Somebody probably clicked off now and just turned this whole thing off because I just didn't praise Tom Brady as the greatest athlete in the history of modern sports. But no, stick with me. I still believe Dirk Cutter would have won had he not been saddled with the quarterbacks he was saddled, plural. They were literally the exact same quarterback. One just had a bigger beard and a lighter complexion.
Yeah.
Neither one of them in the history of their existence have played more than 3 games before torpedoing and just going straight down to like, how the hell are you involved in football? They neither one of them. And I was about to say Bruce Arians, but Dirk Cutter was saddled with 2.
Yeah.
Got on a hot streak with 1, and then what happened? Torpedoed. It did his thing. And yeah, I mean, I understand people just like different. People love different. I actually paid attention. I paid attention to what Bruce Arians did in his history. I understood the coming in with a winning record and a winning mentality and his attitude that everybody loved. I mean, everybody loved in his suave character and so forth. But Bruce Arians has done exactly. He has not changed one bit. Bruce Arians, for all the quarterback whisper talk, for all of the, who he rubbed elbows with and who he's responsible for, Bruce Arians still has had more top 5 defenses than he's had top 10 offenses. Bruce Arians has lived and died off of what the defense does, and just done enough, except for 2 years in Arizona, to be an offensive coach. But somehow he is. That's why I say he's exactly like John Gruden.
So this only applies to Arizona and the BUCS. But to bring a counterpoint there, part of the job as a head coach is to hire a good staff around you.
And he did exactly that. He hired 386 of them motherfuckers, and they.
And let's be honest, Todd Bowles was the number 1 best hire he made.
100%.
So, and I think that is the main difference is Arians, with all his clout, with all his respect. I mean, he's brought in some really great assistant coaches and coaches, and I still love him as a leader, and I still like him as a leader in this locker room. So I don't, as much as I question his play calling and his game management and all that stuff that comes along with it, I really feel like as a franchise, we needed and need a leader like Bruce Arians. And I don't know if you agree with me there, but I still really love his leadership.
Yeah.
And you can pick apart what he says in press conferences and how he throws players under the bus or says this or that. But again, the players love him, but not just love him, they respect him. So,
and that's important. I don't want to keep throwing counterpoints at you. You've seen these opinions out there in the writings or on the tweets and so forth. I've maintained it, and I've kind of showed it statistically where it's been true and so forth. But again, you are making valid points. I mean, it's 100% true. Like the team needed an image. They needed an image and or likeness, anything that they can buy into. And Bruce Arians was 100% the guy that made sense in that image. Like he came in with a winning record. He came in with a reputation for being able to help quarterbacks, for being able to do all these things and everything that the Bucs wanted to be as far as from a promotional standpoint as well. They wanted somebody charismatic. They wanted somebody that was, again, a winner above everything else. They didn't want another experiment. We've just done experiments for the 3 of the last 4 coaches. And Bruce Arians, he definitely fit them. He fit what they needed. He fit what I guess I got to say we needed. We're all Bucs fans, right? So he did. However, again, I still don't let him off the hook for his faults. Nobody's expecting a perfect coach.
And that's the thing is that we can still be critical of him and still, it can be yes and it can be I am 100% on board with criticizing all the stuff he's doing in game, and I can still sit here and say I love him as our coach. So I hope people understand that and realize that is a possible thing. So,
I don't even understand how it's a hard thing for people to understand.
It really seems like it's difficult for some people. It's either black or white. It's 100% or 0. It's nothing in between. So
yeah, I've never been able to take on that mindset ever for any conversation. Not just sports, just any conversation. Like, I don't know how it's either you and I share the exact same opinion and we're 100% tilted one way, or we're completely at opposite ends and here comes a civil war.
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
Anyway, on with the Saints. Sorry to deviate from the
No,
conversation.
no, that's it's 100% fine, man. We're just going to be just a little bit long anyways. But, yeah, on to the Saints. Again, our initial question going back 25 minutes ago was whether or not there was issues that carried on from the previous games, starting with the game against the Giants, that you had concerns about going into this upcoming game. And I guess we can also throw in, week one. Is there anything that happened in week one that you're still concerned about going in this week 8 rematch?
Yeah, it's the fact that Breeze doesn't have to throw deep to beat us. It's, we played him well last time, which is that is helpful, I think. But I don't know. It's one of those things where we're, like, as mentioned, a big blitzing team. We need to get to the quarterback to be successful on defense, and he gets the ball out quick. It's hard to sack Drew Brees. And so I really think that this game, this offense needs to score points. Yeah. I really believe that. I don't think we're going to roll over the Saints because it's a revenge game or whatever. I think there might be some of that, but the fact that our run defense is now worse than it was in week one is a scary thing for me, especially that they have a healthy Kamara. And shoot, even Latavius Murray, I think, can tear us. If Wayne Gallman can split us for 8 yards, at a time, then definitely Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara can. So,
that's the absence of Vita Vea looms big right there.
Yeah, which is interesting. The previous game, it seemed like we didn't. It seemed like we still held our own in the run game. But for whatever reason, the Giants game, it just didn't happen.
What happened in the Giants game was kind of unique, too. I don't know if a lot of people paid attention to it, but in that basically in that front, the 2 down linemen were William Golston and Vita Vea. And then it was just Barrett and Pierre Paul on the end of them. So that was one of the reasons why. I'm not sure. I got to go back and see how many times exactly that's been the case when Vita Vea was in, or the previous game when McClendon came in. But that was the issue, was that you had you had 2 down guys. You had Sue and Pierre Paul, and they can't. Well, they didn't. They didn't create the kind of holes or take up the space or take up the players that Vita Vea did. And one of the writings that I did, I showed that their center, the center for the Giants, this cat was literally chipping Sue or Golston, and was literally looking around to see who was next. Like, he was standing there, like I was like, yo, this is something you hadn't seen since week 10, 2018, before Gerald McCoy and Vita Vea stepped on the field together. Like, I was blown away, and I kept looking for it, snap after snap. I'm like, holy sheesh! Like, I don't know why McClendon wasn't in there. I'm not sure what the deal was or what the strategy was, but yeah, that was one of the reasons we saw that.
Well, I mean, we're not going to have it there for the rest of the year, so we got to figure something out. I don't want that to be a blueprint. I mean, if we can't stop the run, then that's going to really kill us too. Yeah. So that's why I think that I think our big hope this week is, just the offense has got to get it together. It helps having Antonio Brown. At least I think it does. Who knows? Because he hasn't played. At the very least, he's a good decoy. And I am hopeful, too, that he will draw double teams off of Mike Evans so we can feed Evans finally. And also I'm hopeful if Godwin doesn't play, we see Tyler Johnson more than Jaden Mickens.
Yeah.
But I do think that Brady, I do think that he will play much better this game. I think the Saints defense is not that great. I think Lattimore's been struggling. I think that now that this offense has been playing together for 8 weeks, that it's going to look much better than it did week 1. And I do think they need to score points, just simply because I don't think we'll be able to get the Breeze.
Yeah, and to your point about having to score points, the thing that just kind of the thing that kind of got to me that I kept bringing up and my concerns with the offense and their ability, and I apologize, their tendency to fall asleep at the wheel for too long of a lull in these games. That's kind of been the thing that I've been harping on, and I've tried to make sure that it wasn't some kind of bias. I was trying to make sure I'm not losing my mind. But that's exactly what's been happening. I think it was only one game. We did have the game a couple of games ago. I think it was against the Packers, in which the offense didn't punt on back-to-back drives or turn the ball over for the first one time. We've done that one time this season, and I believe it was the Packers game. And that was awesome. Maybe it was the Raiders, I forget. But it's an awesome feat. But that shows like what a dominant team is expected to do. You expect to see the Kansas City Chiefs pull that off.
Yeah.
At one time you expected to see the Pittsburgh Steelers pull that off. And even though they've always been predominantly a defensive team, but the high scoring, really scary teams, the St. Louis Rams, back in the day, all those, the fear that you couldn't stop them. They didn't do anything to stop themselves. That was scary. And that's what I felt like that's the only thing that scares me going into future games. The Saints, I'm not so crazy about. I'm not fearful of the Saints. I'm fearful about what we do to ourselves versus the Saints. I fear not being able to take advantage of what the Saints, their weaknesses, because, we just too often we've made their weaknesses, we just made it an equal playing field for them.
Yeah.
And that's my deal.
That's, I think what we have going, I don't know if you buy into this whole, I'm somebody who really probably puts too much weight into what happened the week before. But for me, the hope I have is that we had that game against the Giants that I think is going to really help us for this week. Just mentality for both defense and offense. Like, I think both of them are like, we don't want this again. And this is a big time game. And it's a revenge game. Like, I think that all matters. I really do. And I think there's no reason that this offense there's no reason that this offense shouldn't be one of those teams that you mentioned, the Chiefs, the Rams from a couple years ago that just score, because on paper, we have the talent to be able to do it. There's no reason we shouldn't be. And to your point, the only reason we wouldn't is if we beat ourselves in one way or another, whether that's penalties or whether it's, bad play calling or coaching or whatever it is. But there's no excuse for us to not be one of those teams. There's no excuse for us to not be able to put up 30 plus points every game, especially against defenses like the Saints that they're not the worst in the league, but they're definitely not the best. They're a middling defense. So that's the hope I have for this Sunday is that, hey, you know what? Brady doesn't lose back to back. That's very hard to do. Just simply, he doesn't do it. And I hope that mentality also goes through the rest of the team that, hey, we're not going to get beat twice. So that's my hope. We'll see what happens. I mean, the Saints are still a scary team, and we always play them close. They always play us close, and it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fun game, and I say that not literally because I hate close games. They're not fun to me. I prefer games like the Packers. I love blowouts, man. They're my favorite.
See, I'm comfortable watching a good game where it's back and forth. That kind of close game, I'm good with.
Right.
Watching my team go down the field and just back to back punt.
Wet the bed.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, come on.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do have, again, going into this game, the one thing I do have is what I've had for most of this season, going back to last season. I feel like the defense, so long as we don't turn the ball over, I feel like they can hang in and basically possibly be dominant against any offense there is in the NFL. I'll put an asterisk on that because Kansas City is the only team that possibly put a little bit of something in me. But as far as the Saints coming up this week, week 9, I said week 8 earlier, I feel good about the defense's chances of doing exactly what they did in week 1. And real quick, take a look at what we did in week 1 with Bruce. With what's that guy's name who I can't stand? Drew Brees. I hate him. 18 of 30 he was. 18 of 30 for 160 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. He had one deep pass the entire game, and it went for 46 yards. Everything else was 18 yard, 20 yards or under. Everything was 20 yards under except for the one big pass that was 46 yards. And I don't fear Drew Brees like that. Drew Brees, we have the best. I feel like the Bucs have the best scout guide for Drew Brees and our starting quarterback Tom Brady, because everything that Drew Brees is good at doing, Tom Brady is equally, if not better than doing it, and he's known for doing the exact same thing other than scrambling.
Yeah.
He's good with getting the passes out really fast. He's good with changing up the offense when things don't look right at the line. I don't think that the Bucs defense could be better prepared for any other quarterback than Drew Brees, because we have that guy who is, I feel is better than he is. I don't know why. Some people are going to be like, well, of course he's better than Drew Brees. He's the greatest of all time. Okay. Drew Brees is the guy that we have to play.
Yeah.
And I think that Drew Brees is, I think that Tom Brady is the perfect guy to be playing against all the time to go up against Drew Brees. And I don't feel bad about that. Again, my only issue is us possibly beating us again.
Yeah.
That is my only issue there.
I hear you. And it stinks because I think we can go toe to toe with them. And if it turns out to be a close game, that's the time when you worry the most about us beating us.
Yeah. Because these end game decisions, man, those are kind of the issue.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll bring up too, man, before we get out of here, we'll take a look at to close this out. We'll take a look at the injury report. Again, this is we a few days out. Still got another practice to see who practices and who doesn't, but we'll take a look at what it looks like as of today, Thursday. But one of the things that was the biggest takeaway for me in week 1 that is going to be the matchup once again to look at, Carlton Davis against Michael Thomas, who's returning this week, allegedly. The one thing that happened in week 1, Todd Bowles, again, I think is the most important person on this freaking team, period. Todd Bowles made the decision to for the first time, have Carlton Davis shadow Michael Thomas. Mm-hmm. That was the shakeup that I don't believe the Saints saw coming. Because if you go back and look at their previous games, going back to last year, they made sure Michael Thomas was on the opposite side of the field 90% of the time to go up against a weaker Vernon Hargraves, to go up against a weaker Sean Murphy-Bunting. And I tried to tell Cass from the beginning of this year, Carlton Davis was going to be what he is. That's going to be our X factor when it comes to stopping the Saints. It starts right there. Despite the running game, despite Kamara, who's going to be a pain in the butt, I think not being able to get Michael Thomas the ball is going to be a bad sign for the Saints.
Yeah, for sure. I am a little concerned just based on last game. The other side covering Emmanuel Sanders. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's more than just last game. I mean, seeing the Chargers, you have a speedy guy that can burn our secondary. Guys like Murphy Bunting and Jamel Dean, they've shown that they can get caught looking and get beat. Obviously, Drew Brees can't throw deep as he used to, or at least he hasn't chosen to. And so there's that. But the last game, Emmanuel Sanders had a pretty big game against us. We did shut down Michael Thomas. So I'm with you there. There's not a doubt in my mind. Like, I'm not worried for the first time ever. I'm not worried about Michael Thomas before this game, but I'm concerned about the other guys. Yeah. And that's just basically because of the last game, mostly because of the last game. Dean did not seemed to have a very good game. So
he did. He was doing what he generally does too. When it comes to getting beat downfield, he would normally let a guy get to his level and he would just run and catch up to him. That's normally what he actually does as a technique for himself. Obviously, it didn't look good with the quarterback overthrowing the way that he did, but that's generally what he does. He will allow himself to get in a basically a race to go downfield with a lot of guys, and he's gotten and it's bitten them just a few times. It looked bad this game because because of so much emphasis on the quarterback. And oh my God, if the quarterback could have thrown the ball better, it may have been a touchdown. Maybe, but that's kind of what he does. I don't like it. I mean, it's not pretty on camera. It's definitely not pretty from the broadcast view that you and I have been looking at. But that's, if you go back and look at his defense, even when he makes breakups, he plays catch up. He's not playing he's not glued to his guy. He basically lets the ball come, see where it's going, tracks it, and makes a break.
He seems to come out of nowhere sometimes. And breaks up passes. Yeah, that's true.
He does that a whole deal.
Yeah.
But before we get out here, man, I would definitely want to get you out here in just a second. Speaking on bad games and possible bad games that may carry over, this is one issue that I have. Not issue, but this is something I'm going to be paying attention to. Our guy, big talker, big playmaker, Devin White. I thought Devin White had a terrible game.
Yeah. He's been up and down. I mean, I have confidence in him and in his ability to grow. I think we want him to be Levante David in his second year.
Yeah.
But he's still learning. And he's miles ahead of where he should be as a second-year player, but we were wanting him to be so much more, I think, sometimes. But yeah, I agree. I mean, he's missed tackles, he's missed spots that especially zone coverage. Sometimes I'm just like, what are you doing?
And it was so funny to me, man, because again, that game Monday night, that was the day that Quan Alexander got traded to San Francisco.
Yeah. And
all throughout my Twitter timeline and other areas, people were laughing and joking and making these comments about Devin White versus Quan Alexander, talking about the missed tackles and so forth. And I was quite tempted to pull up my tweets and was like, yo, hey, I tried to tell you guys, Devin White is basically a bigger, faster version of Quan Alexander.
Yeah.
Every single
very similar.
Every single plus that Devin White had, Quan Alexander had when he came to Tampa, only he did it as a fourth round pick. And, people were kind of, ragging on him about missed tackles and so forth. I didn't even count. How many missed tackles Quan Alexander had against the Giants. I don't think that's going to carry over. It's a scary thought, though. It's a scary thought of him possibly trying to do too much based on how he got washed out and his performance on Monday night.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's just, again, for a second year player, I'm still hopeful that he's going to clean it up. And it's just going to take some time, but I think this fan base has a tendency to see a star position player, and expect them to be the previous star they saw at that position.
Exactly.
That was Gerald McCoy's problem this whole time.
Yeah,
is that he was not Warren Sapp. And then we got spoiled with Derek Brooks, and it's thankfully Levante David. He's not Derek Brooks, but he has at least stepped up to the mantle. But now it's like we're expecting Devin White to be Levante David, and just be this huge stud from day one, which he has been. And that's the thing, is that you're right. He's been basically an upgraded Quan Alexander. I mean, he's made the plays that Quan made plus. In almost every situation or every category, but I think I'm not ready to call him a liability or anything for that.
No.
That stress. Like, he still makes enough plays, gets the sacks, and steps up, and he's become a huge leader on the defense, which I know Quan was too. But it's one of those things where I'm willing to have patience with him, especially with Levante David by his side. It'd be more concerning if he was the only guy out there that was of that talent level.
No, absolutely. I'm right with you. I'm far from calling him a liability. But as far as, one performance to the next, that was kind of one of the things I'm looking at this week to see if his performance last week, well, not even last week, basically just a few nights ago, they'll be playing, within 7 days, if it carries over or if it has any kind of effect possibly with this one coming up. That's going to be something to pay attention to. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. I hate the Saints more than I hate any other divisional rival. And this game, I was contemplating getting my tickets to go to that game once they allowed the fans to come in. I'm still not there yet. Obviously, I'll be watching this game here in Atlanta instead of traveling to watch it in person like I normally would have. But this is definitely one of those games. No matter what the record is, you just want to see the Bucs demolish Sean Payton and his freaking circus of clowns that the big mouth Cameron Jordan, all the crazy talk, that little bastard of a cornerback that likes to snatch people's mouthpieces off their helmets. I want to see the Bucs run the score up.
Yes. I love it, man. I hate that. I'm right there with you. I hated the Panthers with that passion ever since 2003. Mm-hmm. But this year, man, maybe it's just because the Panthers aren't as much of competition, but the Saints have taken it over. I just can't stand the Saints right now. And I'm right there with you. We need to run up the score. We need to make Sean Payton look silly. And the whole, I can't wait, man. I'm just so hoping we win the division so I can throw Cameron Jordan's words back in his face. He's talking about
we're fighting for
race
number
for
2.
second place.
Yeah.
Oh
man, I
makes my blood boil. But I
him.
love it at the same time. I love that we have this kind of rivalry boiling up because it makes the game fun. So
yeah, it does. So real quick, we'll take a look at the injury report as of today, and then we'll close it out here with any predictions you may or may not have. So let's see what we got going on here. So as of Thursday night, the Bucs don't really have anybody who's. I apologize. I was about to say we didn't have anybody that was a big concern outside of Chris Godwin. Ali Marpet with a concussion. He didn't practice, and we're waiting to see what happens with him tomorrow. But Ali Marpet being out of the lineup could be an issue.
Yeah,
could be an issue. However, that is offset with Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle, who would generally be, if I'm not mistaken, he would be matched up or lined up right across from Ali Marpet. He may not be available. So that's going to be, those are 2 injuries to take a look at the next couple of days and see what happens. But both of those guys missing on each side of the line, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that the team isn't revealing who would back up Marpet, which I find very odd. They're just refusing to say. They're like, oh yeah, maybe AQ Shipley and maybe Joe Haig, we'll see. And then Greg Allman tweeted that he's not allowed to reveal who's been practicing. And it's like, what kind of advantage are they getting for not telling them the starting right guard? That's so weird to me. But anyway.
It may be one of those things, man, where and it's just I'm having bad flashbacks now. I'm like, oh man, if we end up doing what we did in week 1, where we basically in game 1 we put 2 tight ends and basically primarily be additional tackles. If we end up doing that same thing to offset the missing of Ali Marpet, then I'm going to be so hurt. Be so hurt.
Yeah. Got to establish that run, man.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
play action going. Got to establish the run.
You can't run all day if you don't start early. That's just crazy. But that's it, man. So again, I want to thank you again, man, for your time. I know you got to get back to your baby girl and your family. I thank you for taking the time out away from them. Obviously, I know you on Twitter and on other pieces of social media. Where can fans follow you for your insight and everything that is Corey Draper?
Yeah, I still tweet through the handle of my abandoned YouTube page, so you can find me at the Play Reaction, and that's where I talk all the footballs. I have a
Oh,
personal account too, which you can just find on your own. I don't really tweet that much from it, and probably not worth following anyway. So,
no, it's all worth following, man. People love what you got to say. Again, and if for some reason you listening, and I thank you for listening, if you've not been familiar with the play reactions work, go take a look back at the old YouTube videos, and as entertaining, as creative, as fun to watch as any other Bucks fan content that's been out in recent years or otherwise. Obviously, you didn't do a podcast, but your videos that you put up, man, people still want to try to replicate that now. I mean, and it was fun to watch, and it was well done, and I appreciate the work, and I know a lot of other fans did too. It was sad to see it go away. So
thank you. Yeah, that's yeah, huge compliment. I appreciate it. I miss doing them for sure, and maybe someday I can bring it back. I want to so bad, but maybe life will the stars will align. We'll see. But yeah, I'm very proud of the work that I did there, and I loved making them. So I appreciate that you did too, and a few others did.
Oh yeah, I might end up recruiting you for the outside leverage. We'll just go from there. We'll do it that way.
All right.
Indeed. Well, man, again, any predictions, anything you got before you get out?
Yeah, I do think the Bucks win this game. I do. I think they win it. I have no idea what the score is going to be like. I think if we do win, it's going to be something like 32-28. It's going to be in the 30s. I think. I hope that it's not high scoring on that end. What I really hope is something like 32-13. Which I would absolutely love, but this is what my gut is saying, so I'll let that be my official score, 32-28.
All right. I don't do score predictions. I just I just make out for things to watch out for. But yeah, 32-28 you call it.
That's it.
That's what
Let's
you
write
go
it
with.
down.
All right, that's it. That's Corey Draper, a.k.a. The Play Reaction. Thank you again for your time, man. I am Robert Green of the Outside Leverage. Please take a look at the podcast, the website. I've got some balloons coming out next week. I'm bullshitting. There's no balloons coming out next week. Yeah, man, check it out. Check out the site, man. Thank you again for listening, fellow Bucks fans. Until next time, go Bucks.